Hello guys, I'm Unblessed Data, and welcome to another review. This time we have Bates Motel, Season 1, Episode 7. So, yeah, this episode was okay. It wasn't the best in my opinion, but certainly wasn't the worst, so I still really enjoyed it. Did get a little boring at times, but hey, every show is going to have its ups and its downs. And last week, which was episode 6, was definitely its up. I mean, that was a great episode. And now it's kind of just boiling down. That storyline with Officer Shelby kind of is closing now. And it's opening up to a different storyline, basically. But it's still intertwined with, like, the sex slaves and all that stuff. So, let's get right into this review, but before I get into it, I just want to let you guys know that this review will contain spoilers, so if you do not want to know what happened, go watch the episode and come back. Alright, so we start off right where we left off in episode 6, and the cops arrive at the Bates Motel, and, obviously because Norma called and said, someone's trying to kill us. And of course, it's the same officer that was there before. At this point, he basically says, okay, you better start talking. Tell me what actually happened. So, Norma and Norman and Dylan all go in the Bates Motel, and they talk to him, and they basically tell him exactly what happened. They tell him the whole truth. Then he says, okay, this is what we're actually going to say. So we can see that he's twisting the story, and we can see that a lot of different people, a lot of different organizations are in this area are really corrupt, and we can see that, yeah, the police officers are corrupt too. He even said, though, that he was suspecting Officer Shelby, to be in some kind of illegal thing, with the sex slaves and all that. So he basically said, okay, I believe what you're saying. Let's just twist the story. I killed Shelby, and Shelby and Keith were fighting, and Shelby killed Keith. So that's just what they're going to say, and they're just saying, oh yeah, and Dylan, you got shot because you were just in the crossfire, whatever. And Dylan was actually kind of upset with that. He's like, what, I put my life on the line, saved you guys, and I don't even get credit? So, yeah, he's kind of right, but I don't know why you would want to be known for killing an officer, but whatever. Then we kind of go to Norman, and he's really fantasizing a lot. He's really fixed on the idea of the girl he slept with, which is Bradley. He's just really obsessed with her at this point. He keeps on thinking about her, like, oh, we're gonna be together, blah, 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 throughout the whole episode. It was really annoying. But then we find out that the Bates Motel is actually gonna open in the next couple days, and Norma said about 7. And when the episode kind of dwindles down, we see, oh, it's opening in a couple days, it's opening in blah, blah. So this episode takes place in a couple days, I guess. And, but the Bates Motel is actually going to open, and they have a little bit of a problem because no one has made a reservation yet. So they're kind of stuck, no money, what are they going to do? But don't worry, because of course something will happen. It's the Bates Motel, come on. But Dylan kind of goes into the house, and Norma cooked him breakfast, is really friendly to him. And he says, I'm still moving out, like, I don't care. And then Norma just goes ballistic and starts yelling and screaming again. So, yeah, Norma's still a little bit of a psychopath, even though I kind of feel bad for her now, knowing the truth about what actually happened to Norman's dad. Like, she didn't actually kill him, and she's kind of just protecting Norman, but she's still, like, mean and, like, just crazy. So, like, I feel bad for Norma, but I don't, because it is partially her fault. So yeah. Then a man pulls up in a car, and he talks to Dylan, and he says, oh, what happened to the Seafair Motel here? He's like, oh, there's new owners now. He's like, oh, well, what happened to Keith? And he says, oh, he's actually dead. And he just drives away after that. We see him again, though, and this episode's actually titled The Man in Number 9, and he's the man in number 9, so we'll find out more about that in a second. But yeah, so he was actually asking for Keith. So at this point, we can figure, well, is this guy gonna be an enemy? Does he like Keith? Is he a friend with Keith? Is he gonna want revenge? He doesn't know that Norma killed him, but it might lead to that. Which he looks like he's gonna be an evil guy, but we don't really know. And he's just, even throughout this whole episode, he's just really weird. Even though, like, the faces he has, he's like, whoa, that's what he looks like he's doing. Like, I can't even, like, describe it. Like, he just looks really weird. But past this, Norma's basically alone at the motel, and Norman's actually sleeping, and she sees the same man at at the motel, like in one of the doors, trying to open one of the doors. So she goes up to him, and he's saying, "Oh, I guess my standing reservation isn't here anymore because my key doesn't open room number 9." She says, "Oh, I own it now, blah blah blah." And he says, "Well, is it okay if like I still stay here?" And she's like, "Well, we don't open, but yeah, sure." So she gets the key, gives it to him, and he goes in there, really kind of sketchy. And again, he has that weird like face, and he just goes away and kind of sneaks away. And Norman goes back. Then right after that, Dylan goes to the door and asks him for some information to, so you can pay for his room, whatever. And he says, "Okay, yeah, here's my driver's license," and that weird face. And he says, "Okay." Then Dylan says, "Can I see your credit card?" And he just gets this like stack of money and just gives him like 10 bills. It's like, okay, there, high roller. But yeah, so we can see something's a little bit suspicious with this guy. We don't really know what. By the end of the episode, though, we have a pretty good idea of what's going on here. But we'll get to that when it comes. Then we find out that Norman, he's like cleaning up the hotel a little for the opening, and he finds a dog that kind of lives underneath the hotel, and he kind of like wants it to be his own dog. So he keeps on running into it and basically saying, "Okay, like, come here, boy." Like, so he really wants it just as a family dog because he wants it to be normal, because normal families have pet dogs. You're not a normal, buddy. But anyway, after that, Emma comes to the Bates Motel and asks for Norman. So Norma goes up to go get Norman, and he basically says, "I don't want to talk to her. Tell her I'm sick." So then Norma goes back downstairs and like tell her, "Oh, Norman doesn't want to do anything, blah blah, he's sick." And she gets like almost cries because like Norman's like putting her off, like, "Just go away, like, I'm with Bradley, like, get out of here," which obviously is a wrong thing to do. But so Norma kind of feels bad for her. She says, "You know what? I need to go pick something up for the motel. You want to come with me?" Okay, so then they go, and Norma kind of asks Emma about like who's Norman with. Like, "Oh, is she a nice girl?" Blah blah blah. And Emma says, "Oh, she's only the most popular like pretty girl in the school." And so then she says like, "Who is she?" And she says, "Oh, she's in like a yoga class right now across the street from my shop." So then they go and kind of spy on her, which is really creepy, but whatever. Then kind of what happens is Norma goes back, and she kind of has the talk with Norman, like, "You're bad, blah blah blah, don't screw girls, like, don't do that," like, basically tells him that. But she brings up a good point. Who comes to your door, which is Bradley? Why would she come to your door the second day you moved in and be like, "Oh, come over," and everything? Doesn't that seem out of the ordinary? Like, how, like, that would never happen in real life. And that's like another thing. I'm kind of happy they addressed this, because in a lot of shows, the new people move in and makes friends like the second they're in the place, like in the new city. That would not happen in real life. And I kind of think that this kind of addressed that. Like, something's weird here. And I think Norma brought up a good point. Yeah. So then she actually says that she hired Emma to work at the motel. And he's like, "Oh, well, you're trying to pick who my girlfriends are too? Like, trying to force Emma onto me?" Which she should be, because, Emma's obviously the better person. But, Norman doesn't choose this. He doesn't have the bird's eye view of the show. So he can't make the right decisions, especially when he's like a psychopath himself. So yeah, but he kind of denies it, like, "You know what, Mom, get out of my life," and he kind of just runs away, and he runs to Bradley's house, and he goes right up to the door and says, "We need to talk." And she says, "Oh, I don't want to talk right now, I have homework and all this stuff." And Norman kind of just says, I feel this way, and I know you feel this way too, and blah blah blah." She says, "You know what, I don't feel that way about you. Like, I shouldn't have done it with someone like you." And Norman gets really offended, and he kind of just runs away, gets out of there. He's really angry, and then Bradley just runs after him, and she says, "I'm sorry, blah blah blah." But Norman's basically in his killer mode right now, because when he's really stressed or something, a big event happens that puts him in a lot of stress, or he gets angry, he goes into that blind rage mode that he's famous for, and even in Psycho too. And he kind of went into that, and he starts repeating Norma, like, you know, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that. Like, I think he's realizing that he's right. But then Bradley hugs him, and he kind of just steps out of, like, the blind killer rage mode, and he's back to normal. So that could have ended really bad. Like, he could have ended up killing her or something. Like, he even said before he, like, snapped at him, he's like, you're not a nice girl. Like, I was expecting him to kill Bradley right there, but okay. Yeah, so after that, but I just want to make another comment. Norma kind of seems kind of jealous that Norman has, like, a girlfriend. It's kind of weird to me. Like, the relationship that Norma has with Norman is really weird. I think it's more than just, like, a son-mother thing. It's like they're a couple themselves, which is really weird. But again, it's supposed to be this way. Like, it's supposed to be a weird relationship that kind of shapes who he is. But just moving on from that thought, after that, basically, this weird man that was, you know, that came into the motel and is staying there, goes up to Norma and says, you know, I'd like to still have the same arrangement I had with Keith. And she says, well, yeah, whatever, you know, every 2 months, whatever, you can stay here for a week, blah, 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 whatever his arrangement was. And he's like, well, I actually need this whole, like, block, this whole row of like, the rooms here. I need it every, you know, 2 weeks or whatever. I need the whole thing. She said, oh, yeah, that's fine, whatever, you know, like, why do you need it, though? Oh, it has to do with my job. She's like, oh, well, what do you do? And he says, oh, I'm in sales. And, like, really creepy. And, you know, she says, well, it's nothing illegal, right? And he's like, oh, of course not, of course. And so then she says, okay, whatever, it's good, you're booked. So, you know, really creepy, really weird. And basically at this point we can suspect that this man is kind of the head of, you know, the sex slave, like, thing. Because, you know how Norman and Emma found out that the person, we don't know who it is, but assuming it's this guy, brings them into the motel for the people to try out. That's basically what I'm thinking. And I know it's pretty much 100% true. Like, there's no other thing that could happen here, unless there's, like, a weird twist or something. But, yeah, we can pretty much assume that this is the guy, like, especially because he's extremely weird. Other than that, the episode ends on a really sad note, I guess. Norman's walking home after, like, being really heartbroken. He walks home and he sees the dog that he's been, like, playing around with for a while, and it's across the street. So he says, you know, come here, and the dog goes across the street and gets hit by a car, and we actually see it get hit by the car in the actual thing, and it kind of blurs out, and then we see, like, something get hit, and it resembles a dog, but it's like it looks like a stuffed animal or whatever. But Norman actually goes and picks it up, and, like, it actually looks pretty real. I mean, the production on it was actually it looked really real, so I have to applaud him on that. But he picks it up, and he's all sad and everything. He's like, I know, I gotta bring it to Emma, she can fix him. Whatever, but he even says, like, you know what, Mom, you were right about everything. So I think he's, like, really going toward Norman is really going toward his mother now, even though, like, he's already obsessed with her. Like, I think it's even gonna go to a new level of that, a new level of, you know, mother and son relationship, like, creepy. Yeah, so overall, okay episode. Wasn't the best, wasn't the worst in my opinion. What do you guys think? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Have any questions for me or anything? Leave it in the comments and we can chat it up. But I just want to say thank you for watching, guys. And don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. I'll talk to you later. See ya.